Hey, this is really, really a strange argument to see made. Republican Congressman Greg Murphy says that Trump has less dementia than Joe Biden, as evidenced by Trump being smarter than Joe Biden. And the smarter you are, the less likely you are to get dementia. Now, I want to make one thing clear because I got a couple emails from some medical professionals over the last 24 hours. There is a difference between age-related memory decline and dementia. They aren't the same thing. And with both Trump and Biden, we could talk about, is there some level of dementia, subclinical or clinical level of dementia? And separately, there's the question of age-related memory decline. These are two different things. And I really do think it's important for us not to interchangeably use age-related memory decline and dementia because they are two different things. But the argument that Greg Murphy makes here is because Trump's smarter, we have less of a dementia concern.
Yes, for those who are saying that Trump, because of his age now, should do this, it's a very well-known fact in the medical literature that says that someone's intelligence is tied to their risk of having dementia later on in life. And those who are more intelligent have less a risk later on in life. Well, Joe has proven in his younger scholar days, when he was near the bottom of his law school class, that he's not as intelligent maybe as President Trump has been. And so, it's comparing apples and oranges, but I think point blank, if he wants to prove that he's intelligent, take a damn test. I mean, it's very simple.
All right. So first question, is it true that there's a link between intelligence and dementia risk? There is certainly a correlation that appears in some studies. The cause and effect of it is a little bit unclear, but there's data. There are some findings that say there could be a protective effect. Higher cognitive ability has a protective effect against developing dementia. The concept of cognitive reserve suggests that if you are of higher intelligence, you have greater mental flexibility, you have richer networks of neural connections in the brain, and that may be able to compensate for pathology related to dementia. That's one idea. There are longitudinal studies that show that if you have a higher cognitive ability in early life or midlife, you have a lower risk of dementia later in life. And then more practically, higher intelligence is often just associated with more health conscious behaviors. The idea being, well, it's not the intelligence, but the intelligence often leads to higher educational attainment. When you have higher educational attainment, you'll often be engaged in more stimulating activities, have a higher income, which often correlates with better health outcomes. All of this stuff independently seems to reduce the risk of dementia. So we don't yet know for sure on cause and effect, but in some general sense, there does seem to be an association between higher intelligence in early and midlife and lower dementia risk and prevalence later in life. Now, that all being said, these are mostly observational studies. Confounding factors, much of the information is self-reported and it has to be disaggregated from socioeconomic status and other things. Bottom line, though, do we even know that Trump is smarter than Joe Biden? And if he is smarter than Joe Biden, is the intelligence difference such that it would be statistically significant in correlating with the decreased dementia risk? There's no evidence of any of that stuff whatsoever. The same Congressman Murphy also said, when it comes to dementia risk, Kamala Harris had better worry, because when we talk about intelligence, I don't know.
I've been told by sources that it is, in fact, Susan Rice running things.
By the way, this is before we even get into the Kamala Harris thing. This is another conspiracy theory. And Vivek Ramaswamy said this to me on the show when I pressed him, who's really running things? Who? He first demurred and didn't want to say, but then he said, people like Susan Rice. Maria Bartiromo has now picked up on it.
From, a long time, from when Joe Biden first walked into the Oval Office, she was really in charge. Yeah. I don't know if you believe that to be true, but what do you think is going on behind the scenes here about the border? They recognize the public cares about this. It's now the #1 issue for the election.
Yeah, I've said many, many times, this is a public government. Biden's not doing it. Kamala, good Lord, we talked about intelligence being a risk factor for dementia. Let's not even go there with her.
All right. So the idea is Kamala's really stupid and therefore her risk of dementia is very high. So conspiracy theory, wrapped up in an attack on Kamala Harris that some are saying is a racist attack. The idea being he's focusing on her not being smart because she's a woman of color. I don't know if that's what's in Murphy's heart, but that was the reaction of some of you in the audience. And then, of course, suggesting that because Trump is just such a genius, he couldn't possibly have as much dementia or memory issues as Joe Biden has. Make of it what you will. Whether this qualifies as a cogent analysis at this point, I sort of struggle to believe. Taking care of your health isn't always easy, but it really should be simple. That's why for years now, I've been drinking AG1 every day. It's just 1 scoop mixed with water once a day, and it gives me the foundational nutritional elements I want for the whole day. Each serving of AG1 gives me what I want in terms of vitamins, minerals, and more. It's just a simple habit. I know that with AG1, I'm getting high quality nutrition. The ingredients are sourced for nutrient density and absorption. If you want to take ownership of your health, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2, plus 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/Pacman. The link is down below.